Do the Cowboys need to bring in a veteran running back behind Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Cowboys. Locked On Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We want to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. I am Marcus Mosher. Follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. He is Landon McCool. Check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. Landon, how you doing today, sir?
Good. Let's talk some running backs. I'm excited to kind of get through this and talk about some of the guys at your favorite position. And I'm assuming we're going to talk the most today about Ezekiel Elliott and about how great he is and how much you love him.
It's a very, very nice segue. Yeah, we are going to talk about all the running backs on the roster, including a couple fullbacks. So we got a lot of players to talk about. Let's start with the best running back on the team.
Oh, boy.
No, we're going to start with Zeke. Ezekiel Elliott, going into year 7, I will admit, I went back and watched all of Zeke's touches from 2021. And it was pretty clear to me that he was significantly quicker in the first 4 to 5 games of the season than we've seen him, I would say, at least over the last 2 or 3 seasons, at least. And then he got the injury. And then after the injury, we're talking about somebody who was tough to watch out there. But what are your expectations for Zeke now that we're going into year 7?
I think there's a lot of hand wringing going around Zeke. I mean, there's always a lot of hand wringing going around Zeke. From the 22 mile an hour comments to just the general thing. I believe the 22 mile an hour comment because, again, for the reasons that you just mentioned, when we watched Zeke last season before the PCL injury, he looked great, and I think that we all just kind of erased that part of our memory because it got overwritten by what we saw from Zeke after the PCL injury, right? And I could understand that because post PCL injury Zeke looked like Zeke from previous seasons where he just looked like slow and worn down and didn't have the same burst that he had earlier in the season. So, now that he's healed from that, I expect a return to something close to that. Now, I don't know that you can rely on that for the entire season. I mean, there certainly is another chance he gets banged up and that happens again. But I think if you're asking me what I expect from Zeke, I expect him to look closer to what he looked like at the beginning of the year last year because he still kept that weight off. It still seems like he's serious about, kind of playing at a little lower weight, increases speed a little bit. So I expect him to kind of return to form to that version closer than what we saw at the end of the year. And I think that if you can combine that with another kind of a little bit healthier dose of Tony Pollard, I think you've got a really great running back group. And I think there's a lot of things you can do with that group, and it's a very versatile group. So I look forward to what Zeke's, so actually seeing Zeke with his new helmet and training camp. And see if he's got that kind of speed back, that quickness back that we saw in the early part of last season.
Yeah, and the numbers back up this too. Like in the first 6 games of the season, even including an 11 carry for 33-yard game against Tampa Bay, who had the best run defense in football, he was averaging 5.1 yards per carry, which that rivals what he did as a rookie, right? Like that's incredible. But in the following 11 games, 3.5 yards per carry. That is well below league average. And actually, that's the lowest yards per carry of any running back that had at least 100 carries. So you can see the difference there. You're talking about getting a top 2 or 3 running back in the first month and a half of the season versus arguably the worst running back in the league. What's he going to look like in 2022? My guess is probably somewhere between that. I know those are 2 wide ranges, but
yeah, that's pretty wide range.
Yeah, I mean, it's just this is what happens to running backs when they get older, right?
Yeah,
they can look really good in spurts and they can look really good when they're healthy, but they start to break down a little bit more. And I don't know how preventable a PCL injury or anything like that is, but it seems like when you get to age 27, 28 with running backs and you have this many touches on your body, you're just more susceptible to allow these things to tamper your game, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's wear and tear. I mean, the truth of the matter is that, for years and years and years, Zeke kind of avoided these kind of injuries. And that, as you start to get them, they can start to pile on you, right? And lower body injuries for a running back are, that's once you start getting the chain of those, it's the beginning of the end. Now, the question that now becomes, I don't have any doubts that Zeke can be back to where he was the beginning part of last year. The question is, how long is that going to last? Is that something that he can maintain throughout the season? I think it can be if he can avoid kind of those sort of, I mean, that was an injury he played through,
It was an injury.
And I think that was this isn't like a nick or something like that. So, and I think the Cowboys made a decision to kind of continue to allow him to play at that same rate and decide not to kind of throttle him down. And look, I can see how after watching the early part of the season, you wanted to kind of give Zeke the benefit of the doubt. But I think by the end of the year, they should have known that, hey, this wasn't working out. He needs to rest. It's so, here's hoping that he doesn't have to deal with that kind of lower body, that specifically severe kind of PCL injury. And if he is going to take on kind of bumps and bruises, which is normal for running back, that it's kind of more in that sort of nature of pulls and strains as opposed to, the PCL issue that he dealt with. That clearly, I mean, had a very pronounced effect on his game. After I think he got the injury in October, right? So everything after, so everything after that was not great.
Should mention with Zeke, there's a lot of indicators here that he's just trending in the wrong direction, and that's not really surprising considering, again, he's going to be 27 in July. He's got a lot of wear and tear on his body, but his rushing yards per game have now gone down in every season since his rookie year. His rushing attempts have gone down every single game from 24.2 to 13.9, which, by the way, I think 14 to 15 is kind of where he should be at any rate at this stage of his career, especially when you consider the other running back on the roster. But yards per carry it's dropped quite a bit. The yards per touch have dropped now in 4 straight seasons. I just think the days of 2016, 2018 Zeke are probably gone, despite what he looked like early in 2021.
I'm a little bit higher on him than that. I think that he can return to I'm not 2016 Zeke, but I think that what we can. I mean, you saw what you just talked about. He was averaging over 5.5 yards a carry, before he got injured. Mm-hmm. So I think there is a possibility he can get to that 5 yard a carry range and kind of maintain that if he can stay not PCL injured, healthy. But I do agree that he's not going to ever be that same player he was in 2016, 2017, the whatever fountain of youth that you could find at running back, it's always temporary. So he may have a brief resurgence. And then again, as he makes his way towards the dreaded 28 years of age as a running back, then, it's going to start looking more and more, incapable of kind of keeping up that same level of performance.
Yeah, let's go ahead and transition to the whole reason why we're doing this show anyways, to talk about Tony Pollard as much as possible. But before we get there, I want to tell you guys about Athletic Greens. I've been on Athletic Greens since about March, and I absolutely love it. It's been it has a very mild yet tropical taste that I actually look forward to having every morning. So what is in this stuff? With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins and minerals to help your day start off right. It costs you less than $3 a day, and you're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than the morning coffee that you get. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition, especially considering that we're heading into flu, cold, allergy season. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NFL Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NFL Network to take ownership over your health. All right, let's talk about Tony Pollard, who eclipsed 1,000 total yards for the first year of his career. He had 130 carries, which was the most rushes attempts in his career. He had 39 receptions. And yet I still think he is wildly underused in this offense. What are your thoughts on Pollard entering year 4?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the idea is to kind of use Pollard more and to use him with another uptick from last year. I think hopefully we've been talking about this for quite a while. Hopefully, the idea is that they get him involved in the passing game a little bit more, and that they use a little bit more of the personnel grouping that involve both him and Zeke on the field at the same time. I just think that there are so many different areas that Pollard can get more touches and more different, a whole bunch of different ways to get him the football and try to help him create. And I don't think it necessarily needs to just be more touches in the run game, though I do think that more touches in the run game would be beneficial. I think getting him involved in the pass game. I mean, again, just to remind everyone, he came in basically as a receiver more than a running back in college, so he has those kind of skills. I think that the Cowboys should try to continue to cultivate that, and I think that there's some speculation, and I've heard some people kind of poo-poo the idea like this is not really a good replacement. He's not a wide receiver and all that. I don't think that the idea is that he's going to be running choice routes. I'm not running him slot fades to Tony Pollard down the field. I think the idea is that you get him open quickly, or you get him open in an outlet sort of way, and that getting Tony Pollard the ball in space with already on the move is better than getting. I mean, frankly, almost any wide receiver or anybody else on the team with the ball in space on the move. So I think the idea is not to play a running back at wide receiver or think that a running back can, I don't know, take the place of Amari Cooper. I think the idea is that you're doing this to give Pollard specifically, not just running backs, but Pollard the opportunity to get the ball on the move in space and to create yak opportunities. Because I think that's, like I said, we talked about it all last year. Let's give Dak the easy button. How do we find ways to give Dak the easy button? Getting Pollard the ball in space, for a quick 4 to 5, 6, 7 yards, that's hitting the easy button. That's setting yourself up to, get ahead of the sticks on a quick dump off when nothing's open down the field. That's an easy way to get a mismatch or to create a potential big play that could score suddenly because Pollard's so great at breaking tackles and getting loose. So I think they need to find a way to better avail themselves of his skill set, which is not just turning around and handing him the ball or pitching him the ball outside. It's let's see him more on jet sweeps. Let's see him more running some kind of routes from the slot. Let's see him more coming out of the backfield and running routes. I think those are all ways that you can marry a creative offensive coordinator with a yak weapon that could really, give a huge boost to this offense.
I just think the Cowboys need to find ways to get him the ball. And I hear the arguments on Twitter all the time that, listen, he's not as good of a pass protector as Ezekiel Elliott. That's fine. He's not as good of an inside runner as Ezekiel Elliott. That's fine. What I know is over the last 3 years, nobody has hit a big play, which is a 20-yard reception or a 10-yard run at a higher rate than Tony Pollard. I think that stat can be a little noisy on a 1-year sample size, but we've got 3 years of data that shows he just creates big plays whenever he touches the ball. He had the second most big plays in the Cowboys team last year behind only CeeDee Lamb, and he had 160 touches. Like, they should be trying to get this guy 220 touches a season because he's just so dynamic with football in his hands. And if it means giving up a little bit as an inside runner and a little bit in pass protection, I think that's okay because you mentioned it. I think he's so dynamic with the ball in his hands that you trust him more than most receivers in the entire NFL. So why not try to find ways to get him more touches?
I will push back a little bit here because I do think he's more than just not good at pass protection. I think he's pretty bad at it. Like, I mean, and to the point where,
but there's other running backs in the league that are bad in pass protection. I think
that's absolutely true. I think I'm not criticizing him. What I'm actually going to criticize is that the Cowboys need to find a way to get him on the field for passing situations where he's not pass protecting.
Yeah.
Like if that means moving him into the slot pre-snap, or just not having him as part of your protection plan
Right.
on a regular basis,
The
then that's
Saints
what you need
don't
to do.
waste Alvin Kamara in pass pro, right? They use him as part of the reason that teams can't blitz, right? Because as soon as you bring the 5th or 6th rusher, they're throwing a little pass out to Kamara in the flat, and he's taking it for 15 yards, right? Do things like that where you can kind of limit your exposure to him, taking on linebackers and safeties and that kind of stuff.
And this is the hope that if with an improved offensive line, with maybe a little more stout up front offensive line, you can do more 5 protection schemes, and also with the healthier Dak, I think you can do more 5-man protection schemes, not have to worry about having your running back in as much. Look, they're still going to want Zeke in 6-man protection schemes when they're blocking. I understand he's probably the best pass blocking running back in the league. He may be one of the best pass blocking running backs in history. But I think that, that should not mean that those are the only types of roles for your running backs in the passing game. Pollard's a different type of player that should be taken advantage of. Use his skill set instead of trying to ham fist him into Zeke's role on a third down situation when he's a different type of player.
All right, Landon, the next player that we need to talk about, Rico Dabble. This is one of your guys, I feel like. I feel like you've taken ownership of him pretty quickly in the process. So the floor is yours. Go ahead and tell us about Rico.
Well, I mean, I didn't realize that I had claimed him so heavily, but yeah, I mean, I think Rico is a guy that, came out of South Carolina, kind of went under the radar. Clearly there was some sort of, disagreement with the coaching staff there. Some kind of, they obviously did not see it eye to eye. He didn't get the opportunity that it feels like he should have, just based on what we are seeing from him post draft or post him coming into the NFL. This is a guy that is, small. He's explosive. He's powerful. He's a little bit smaller, but he's got that good speed. He's got good good hips. Despite, we'll talk about his hip injury. We'll see. But I think he has some kind of some kind of Tony Pollard to his game a little bit, where he's explosive. He can take it. And he's a threat with the ball in his hands. I think he is still developing. I think that was clearly last year was really going to be a big year for him. I think because it was going to be an opportunity. I felt like that they were going to maybe even potentially give him some snaps on offense without injury. And then unfortunately he got a pretty serious hip injury, and it's the kind of thing that he's still sort of rehabbing from. I don't think he's back yet from what we've heard. Hopefully he'll be back in the in training camp. I'm thinking. Dowdle's at an interesting point in his career, right? Because they've got Ryan Nall, who they signed, who is, we'll talk about him in a bit, but I do think that, they want Dowdle to take that third running back job. They want him to be that guy. The question is that can he recover from that injury in time to kind of earn that spot back? Or are they going to either have to hand it to Ryan Nall with maybe another veteran signed in, or what's it gonna look like in training camp? So, the thing with Dowdle is that he at this point has a huge spectrum of outcomes that could happen to him, whether it's being the third running back on this team or potentially being cut. Like I think it's all going to depend on exactly how his rehab went, how quickly he can get back to that kind of speed and explosiveness that he had earlier. And whether that he's kind of found a way, despite having a hip injury, to kind of take another step in his game. Because I know that the Cowboys like him a lot, and I think he has shown the ability to kind of physical ability to play in this league if he needs to.
It's a make or break year for him, right? He'll be 24 by the time training camp kicks off. He needs to make an impact. He needs to have a really good training camp, because if he doesn't, I don't think the Cowboys are just going to keep him on the roster because they kind of like him. Like they'll either have to go out and get somebody else. They'll promote Ryan Nall a little bit. Maybe they'll use some more Nick Ralston. We'll see. But I think he's probably the favorite to be the third running back right now. But it's certainly not etched in stone or anything like
Absolutely
that. He's got to earn his spot on the team.
They've given him a runway to earn the job, but there's still a lot of stuff that he's got to be able to overcome, on his own in order to do it.
Yep. All right, let's keep moving on. We've got a lot of running backs to still talk about. Jacon Hardy, who we saw last year during training camp and during the preseason. He was on the practice squad for most of the year. He was a Hard Knocks favorite. What do you think about Hardy going into year two? He was UDFA last year. Year two, are you excited about him at all?
I'm not. Look, I think he's seems like a good guy. Someone I'm rooting for, all that. But it's like he's undersized. He's not explosive.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a lot of speed. He's not going to play special teams really for you. What are we doing here, honestly?
To me, he feels like the type of running back that you keep on the practice squad for another year, because if you need somebody to come in and give you snaps, he can do it, and it can be admirable, and he can play hard, and he's going to run tough. But I don't think he gives your offense any boost, right? He's not elevating the players around you. He's not somebody that defenses have to worry about. It's just he can do a workman type job.
Yeah, I don't understand these kind of players on the team. It's like if you're a down roster running back, be a special teams ace or be an incredibly explosive athlete. Don't be neither. Like, I no offense to Hardy, but it's just he's special. I think he's practice squad is his ceiling, right? Like, so
he probably needs a really good camp and preseason to earn a spot on the practice squad. Even though they've remained having 16 players on the practice squad, there's a whole bunch of new running backs that just came into that came into the equation now, right?
We've got other unathletic running backs that we can have as our third running back. If we wanted Malik Davis, he's younger than Jacon Hardy. So,
sorry.
Oh wow. Yeah. So I think I don't get it with Hardy. Like it feels like a pet cat situation to me.
We'll see.
I don't. Really
maybe he makes a big leap in year two and he just becomes more comfortable in the scheme. But I think you're probably right.
But he still comes in the same package, right? He's still undersized, still not fast, still not quick. You know, so yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
The Cowboys also have two other running backs on the roster right now: Malik Davis, Aaron Shampkin. But I want to talk about the fullbacks because you love fullbacks. We got a little bit of a battle here, right?
Yeah,
Ryan Nall and Nick Ralston. Nall is probably the better special teamer, the better pure runner. What do you think about that battle?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because much like this is the modern fullback depth chart battle, right? Where they're not actually competing with each other, honestly. I mean, because really what Ryan Nall does is that he has the potential to be your third running back, your fourth running back if you want, and be a fullback with some special teams. Ralston is more of a pure fullback type with special teams prowess, right? So I think Nall is a guy who can play special teams, has played a lot of special teams before, whereas I feel like Ralston is a more kind of physical player, more kind of a tough, almost more linebacker type fullback who you actually feel like could dig out linebackers, dig out defensive linemen in the hole. I think if you're asking me who the better fullback is, just as that position goes, I would assume it would be Ralston because Nall has done some of that, but not a lot of that. He's more of a pure running back. I would say that Nall is kind of more and I compared it to him before, Rod Smith type of fullback where
he's right?
Yeah, a hybrid. He can play fullback. He can line up there. He can block. But I think that, for the most part, he's going to make his offensive hay catching the football, being a runner, being a physical presence with the football in his hands, as opposed to being a guy who's, pancaking defensive tackles as they're lining up in an I formation.
Jameis Olawale?
Yeah, I mean,
although he's a better runner than Olawale ever was.
Yeah, maybe. He's not quite the athlete that Olawale was. But I think that he's probably he's more of a running back. I think Rod Smith is
Rod Smith's
comparison. He's a bigger dude. He's got more finesse to his game for someone that's that size than you normally see. So there's not quite the same physicality to his game.
I agree.
That you would normally expect from somebody in that package.
All right. As always, we're going to run through some free agents just to see if there's anybody out there that would interest you, Landon, because I do think the RB3 spot is up for grabs, whether it is Jacon Hardy, whether it's Rico, whether it's Ryan Nall. But here are the free agents out there: David Johnson, Jalen Richard, Devontae Booker, Latavius Murray, Devontae Freeman. Peyton Barber is at least a little bit interesting because he can play on special teams and passing downs. Jerick McKinnon, Corey Clement, who the Cowboys had last year, who played a lot of snaps. And then Justin Jackson, Le'Veon Bell. Did anybody there interest you?
I mean, honestly, Barber and Clement do, because I mean, you're playing a role. You're not really necessarily being brought in here to come in and compete. And you know, the truth of the matter is, whoever it is, I can't imagine that they're coming in, you know, before like 2 weeks before, you know, the season starts.
Yeah,
I have to imagine they're going to give all of these young guys every single opportunity to take these snaps, unless they get injured, obviously.
I think Peyton Barber's likely going to do exactly what he did last year. Wait until about week 4 or week 5, and then sign a deal with a team that needs a running back, and just kind of get paid week by week, and go to a situation where he's going to play it. He did that last year with the Raiders. Ended up playing 11 games for them, and got a lot of touches. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Cowboys do something like that. I also think they just want to see what the UDFAs have. I'd rather give those guys as many snaps as possible. And if you need to go pick up Peyton Barber or Jalen Richard in September, you can, because they'll be available, along with probably 9 other veteran running backs that are currently on teams.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's never going to be a shortage of capable running backs on the street, you know. So I think.
Are you saying that running backs are like replaceable and you can just kind of shuffle them in and out?
At a certain level, yes, they are. It's kind of like wide receivers. It's yes. I mean, at a certain point, yeah, they are interchangeable because there's tons of them.
There are,
and so I think that, you know, at a certain level, if you're looking for, you know, running back 3, then you could probably, you know, find that guy on the street without too much problem. You know, no matter what point of the year it is, I think those guys, they come out every single year, and they're waiting on the street for someone to pick them up.
Absolutely. All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you guys for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen of the day. Now make for your second listen the Locked On NFL podcast. Our national NFL experts and insiders keep fans dialed in with the biggest stories and the latest news from around the league. Follow Locked On NFL every day on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast, just like wherever you get the Locked On Cowboys podcast. You can check us out on YouTube, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can follow the show at Locked On Cowboys. You can follow Landon at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus _Mosher. Enjoy your Memorial Day weekend. We'll see you guys next time.